Central rivals go head-to-head this weekend when the Pirates face the Cubs at Wrigley.
Swing and a miss. He struck him out.
The pregame at 3 Eastern, first pitch at 4. Saturday on ESPN Radio and the new ESPN app. This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
And a pleasant good afternoon. New week has arrived, and we are raring to go here on a Monday, the Monday after the Masters. So certainly everyone finally donning their green jackets, but no one like Jordan Spieth. A little bit of news to pass along today was 5 weeks ago when Anthony Grant was let go from the University of Alabama. It was a week ago when his replacement was finally introduced, Avery Johnson. Well, Grant is returning to coaching. It was announced earlier today that he will return to the University of Florida to reunite with Billy Donovan. Also on that staff, John Pelfrey, who left Billy Donovan's staff to go to South Alabama and eventually to Arkansas before returning as an assistant. So he'll have two former SEC head coaches. I don't know if that's a Final Jeopardy question or not. What SEC school other than Florida has ever had two former SEC head coaches on the docket? But if you know the answer, please let us know. Not much to add to the big story of yesterday. The Masters, certainly one of the amazing performances in Augusta history. It was almost unfair the way Jordan Spieth and others decimated that great golf course in Augusta, but that's what happened, and that is now in the books. As I mentioned, we're moving on. A lot of spring games this week, including Auburn and Alabama Saturday. Tennessee is the following week. We'll get into that a little bit. If you have any reaction to the four that took place last Saturday from Florida to Georgia, obviously those were two of the bigger games on the board. Ole Miss as well, and certainly a lot of Florida fans, I'm not sure, coming out of that game feeling very confident about the program. That's a conversation we had the other day. As much anticipation and excitement as there is for Jim McElwain, if he has a very mediocre season, which some experts expect, what will the tolerance level be after 4 years of Will Muschamp? 3 of those years were pretty miserable. Let's start with Lance in Tennessee as we begin a new week on the show. Hey, Lance. Lance, you there? Anybody hear Lance? Best Lance call ever. Thanks, Lance. Good call. Really appreciate your hard effort. Brian is in Florida. Hey, Brian, thank you for the call.
Okay, hi. This is Brian in Tampa, Florida, first-time caller.
Good to hear from you.
Hey, the reason I'm calling is I find it interesting that Billy Donovan hired Anthony Grant back with him and Pelfrey there. And, of course, Donovan being the head coach. Those three were together during Florida's 2006 and 2007 run. And also, I'd like you to comment possibly, Billy Donovan has left open the possibility of entertaining offers from the NBA. Does him bringing Grant back kind of signal that, hey, I'm staying for a while longer? I'll hang up to listen to your response. Thank you. Yeah,
Lance, that would be my best guess. One thing I do know about Billy Donovan and Anthony Grant, they are very close friends. Their families are close. I have a difficult time believing that Grant would have gone or taken the Florida job if Billy was going to leave, other than this one factor that maybe Grant assumed or maybe had some assurance that if Billy left, then he would take over as the head coach. It is a fact that following the second national championship, when Donovan left to go, I think, that when Donovan left to go to Orlando, I think Anthony Grant had already gone to VCU. I'd have to double-check that. I'm pretty sure Jeremy Foley is on record as saying he would have hired Anthony Grant. Now, has anything changed in the last 6 years to dissuade him from that? I don't know. I sincerely doubt it. So that's the only caveat I might add to making an assumption there. We'll try Lance again. Lance, you there?
What's up, Paul?
Doing good. Thank you.
Said my best call ever. Man, you sure are slick. I tell you what, boy. Hey, I got to tell you, man. I watched that Florida spring game. Looked like they was running the same place from last year. I don't know if they're just trying to keep everything close to the vest so other teams can't scout them or what. But, man, I didn't see anything different. But whatever. But let me ask you a question. I ain't trying to start no trouble on the show, but I got to ask you a question, Paul. Do you think Bob Stoops deserves Big Gang Bob title? Because to me, I don't think he deserves that title anymore.
Well, that's something that people have labeled on him, and I think it used to be a positive label. Now it's just become a negative label because of his lackluster play. Once you get a title, you're going to keep it. Just like Spurrier, they call him the old ball coach. They've been calling him the old ball coach even when he was the young ball coach.
I'm kind of hard on coaches. You know that about me, man. But I can't stand for people to say somebody's a big game coach when you ain't won a national championship since 2002, and I think he's lost 2 other ones.
I believe he's lost in 3 national championship games. He lost. He lost to Florida. He's lost to Tennessee, and he's lost to SC.
Ooh, they got Bob Stoops.
Excuse me. Let me correct myself. He lost. He didn't lose to Tennessee. No, Florida State lost to Tennessee. I think Oklahoma's lost to
LSU and Florida. I know. Is there
LSU, Florida, and Southern Cal. Remember they got in 2004, or I think it was 2004. Yeah.
Well, 2003 when they had the co-national champions.
Well, no, but I think it was the 2004 season. SC beat them 55-14 or something like that in the Orange Bowl.
Well, good. I was just wondering, man. I didn't think it was Big Game Bob, but I hear it every day. And I just want to say, man, that's Oklahoma. But I love the fact that maybe Larry from Missouri can explain to me how they gave up 2 4th and goals to the Florida Gators in that 2008 game. And then when he gets done with that, he can tell me how they completed that jump pass since he knows everything about Oklahoma football. I'll leave you with that, Paul. Go Gators.
Thank you very much, Lance. Good to hear from you. Devin is up next in Florida. Devin, good afternoon.
Hey, Paul. How you doing today?
I am pretty well, thank you.
Yeah, man, I'm a loyal listener. You know, he just started playing y'all on the local station out of Destin, and I'm a real loyal listener to you. And I just wanted to ask you what you thought about Coker this year. I ain't been able to listen very much in the afternoons lately, but is Coker going to be the main focus Saturday in Tuscaloosa?
I don't think so. I'm not sure. I mean, I was talking to some friends of mine in Alabama today, and I think the Alabama quarterback situation remains up in the air.
Yes, sir. And one other thing, Paul, I respect y'all's show a lot, and these people calling in, it seems like it's getting to be a circus where these people call in and disrespect you. And I think on our part as listeners and you own the show, I think y'all need to start disconnecting them people a little sooner. You know, like that guy Lance that called last week and just kept on and on and on, you know, arguing with you and putting you down. And, you know, you ain't got to listen to that. You know, he don't have to call into the show. You know, nobody's holding a gun to his head making him listen to the show.
Well, thank you for the call. Let me address that for new listeners, because I do think that is where this program is different. I don't feel like I'm sitting up here on some pedestal or mountaintop talking down to callers. I think that's what's made this show successful. Is that it's an even conversation. Yes, I do have the last word, so to speak, but it doesn't bother me when people say what they do. I think it makes the show more real versus stilted. I mean, I was listening to a talk show today, and it's just the host is holier than thou and high and mighty, and that's not what I want this show to be. I want this show to be a give and take, and if you want to say something about me, fine. I can handle it. That's what I'm here for.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
We're talking about college football, and who better to bring in than Andy from Ohio?
Hey, Paul. I'm always the first one to criticize, other callers who give you career advice. However, something occurred to me over the weekend. I mean, we can agree that you like money, right? You you didn't just uproot yourself and move to Charlotte out of the goodness of your own heart. You were compensated by ESPN.
Andy, it was about opportunity. I never asked what they were offering. You know that.
Well, I was looking around and I realized that, your book's out there, but I imagine that the demand for the Yay Raw, the SEC network, or the SEC is the best book ever. Demand for that probably tailed off after early January. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, that was, by the way, Andy, not to give you a lesson in the book business, but I will. There are two ways to make money in a book. You get a small advance and hope that you sell millions of copies and get royalties, or you do what smart people do and they get a big advance and move on regardless. You do what you can, and in our case, I think the documentation will indicate which one that was.
Well, what I was want to make you aware of is that the demand for something else has risen drastically since the beginning of January, and that is for a complete, unedited copy of your Finebaum Film Room show. I mean, I am dead serious. I mean, there are Ohio State fans across the country looking for this thing. There's one digital copy available on the internet. It's awful. It's from the condensed version. All the callers are cut out. The audio, I mean, just the quality across the board is horrendous. So this week is the Ohio State spring game, this weekend. And I can't imagine that advertising space on the Big Ten network is more than like $25 or $30. So I propose that you go ahead and take out a little ad space this weekend on the Big Ten network and go ahead and push your book, but make it as part of the promotion there that if somebody buys your book, then they get a complimentary copy of the complete Finebaum Film Room. And I'm telling you, man.
Well, let me tell you this though. There's one moment. I think it was when did Ezekiel Elliott score the touchdown? Was that in the fourth quarter?
Yes, 85 yards. To the
that's the moment that's worth getting from the film room, because I was sitting there next to Greg McElroy, and as he broke through the line, we both pretty much it was clean. We said, "Oh my!" And it was just a hilarious, very real moment at nearly midnight Eastern time, maybe closer to 12:30. That is my favorite moment of that film room. If you're an Ohio State fan.
Well, I tell you, people have contacted ESPN. They won't sell them a copy of it. They only replayed it on the SEC network once.
We did replay it once, but by the way, I don't know why. We played it after the game, so Ohio State fans were certainly. I'm sure, Andy, for you, we'll make it available.
Well, I'll just be the most popular guy up here in Buckeye Land. But Paul, it's great. We've exercised the demons. Basketball's over here. I got on one day last week, and we had to talk about women's basketball, and I had a seizure. But now it's all about the football again, so let's talk about A-Day and all that fun stuff and get the build-up as to why the SEC is the greatest, roughest, toughest, bestest conference that can't win a bowl game in the last 2 years out there. Thanks, Paul.
Always good to hear from you, and, I can't wait for the Ohio State spring game this weekend. Ralph is up next in Knoxville. Hey, Ralph.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
Pretty well.
I just want to start out telling you I love you. Love the show, brother.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. I got it on the tail end of your and Lance's call earlier, and I just kind of wanted to, be up front and say that I'm a Boomer Sooner. I want to say a little bit of something about Bob Stoops and what he's accomplished as a 168-44 starting his 17th season. Yeah, 3 games got away from us last year, but I don't understand. I really wanted to ask you a question. When did he piss in your post toasty?
In mine? I don't think he ever did. I do think Bob Stoops has gone from being one of the premier coaches in college football to a middle-of-the-road coach, and I don't care what his record is. Overall, I know what he's done the last couple of years. And, yeah, you can say, what about the year that he beat Alabama? Well, what about it? If you look at Stoops over the last 3 or 4 years, he has continued to blow the big games. He has continued to choke in the big moment. And I don't think he any longer is an elite football coach. I think as a top-tier coach, he's a total fraud. Let's continue next. Jim is in Alabama. Hey, Jim.
Hey, how you doing, Paul?
Very well, thank you.
Good. Thanks for taking my call. Paul, I'm a Blazer fan, and I got banned from calling Dr. Ray Watt's office, voicing my opinion about that man.
He's the president of UAB.
Right. He's the president of UAB, Paul. And, you know, we're heartbroken down here. And I made it my business to call his office about once a week, speaking to his secretaries, voicing my opinion about what he did. Now, Paul, I was never vulgar. I was never mean. But what I had to say was not pleasant. It was not pleasant at all, Paul. You know, in my opinion, and others down here, this man's a puppet. He's a fraud, and he should leave. The last time I called, I was told by one of the secretaries, don't call up here anymore because you are harassing us. So I haven't called back, Paul, because I don't want, you know, to sit at home one day and a policeman shows up at my house with an arrest warrant for harassment. But, Paul, you know, we've caught this man in so many lies about the timeline of shutting down the program, why the program was shut down. And when we catch them in lies, Paul, then, you know, they just double down on the lies.
Yeah, well, let me say this, Jim, and I'm not on the front line. I've never met Ray Watts. I wouldn't know him if he was crossing the street in front of me, but I do know from a distance that he looks inept. He looks ineffectual. It doesn't appear to me that he has told the truth. It doesn't appear to me that he has been what college presidents should be, and that's genuine and displayed leadership. So I'm in agreement with everything you said, but don't get arrested over making a phone call to the president of the university. I don't know how you could, but as long as you call and express yourself, then I don't know why he doesn't give you the courtesy of returning your call or at least setting up a meeting.
Well, they won't, Paul, and, you know, they won't talk to me. And, Paul, one other thing, you know, you were in the know, and I appreciate, you know, you letting us come on your show and talk about this UAB situation. Paul, I thought for a while that we would get our program back in 2016, but the way things are going, I'm not sure, Paul, and I want to ask you, and I'll hang up and listen.
Okay.
What do you think? Do you think we'll get that program back in 2016?
Well, I think you should, and I think the only way to get it back is to use the political machinery of Birmingham, Alabama, and that starts with the mayor, William Bell. I've known Mayor Bell a long time, and I think he's a good and decent person, and I think he's the only person there that can affect change. And going to the governor is not going to help. Going to your congressman, calling local radio shows, but you have a man who runs that city that understands the politics of that city, and that's where I would go. I'd show up at the city council and I'd make a stand, and I think that's your best bet.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
I've had the great honor of being on the other side of this many, many times, speaking with Hannah Storm. So I apologize if I'm just a little bit anxious and nervous welcoming Hannah Storm from ESPN to our show. Hannah, how are you?
I'm great. I had to make a movie to, you know, get on your program, though.
Yeah, you did, and you've made a couple of these. This is your fifth film, is that correct?
Yeah, it is. Yep. Last year I made a short film about Payne Stewart. So that was my last movie, which aired before last year's U.S. Open, and then again on the anniversary of his death. And then this is my first full-length film I've made since about 2 years, I guess. I made one on Cheryl Swoops for 9 for 9. So, yeah, this is the fifth one, and it's great. And I'm so excited to be on, like you said, and talk to you about it. I listen to your show all the time, and, you know, we always chat on Sundays during football season, so this is a real treat.
I remember, not to get overly personal here, I ran into you about 5 o'clock in the morning in Pasadena a year or two ago. You were about to do the Tournament of Roses parade. Right. I wasn't even paying attention. I was just groggy as everyone is that time of the day, and you said something to me like, I listen to your show every time, all the time, and I kind of nodded my head, and then I looked at you and about screamed. I didn't realize who it was, and I'm like thinking, I really thought Hannah Storm was a smart individual until I realized that. But it's great to have you.
Too. My dad is one of your biggest fans. He's listening in Atlanta right now, too.
Oh, my goodness.
Shout out to Big Mike.
Who has a pretty interesting sports story as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, my dad was commissioner of the old ABA and involved in a bunch of teams. It's funny, we were on the air today talking about the Hawks being sold, and, he was, at one time president, even the Atlanta Hawks. So, I grew up watching basketball as a little tiny kid from, when it wasn't a school night, we were at basketball games, all manner of teams, the Indiana Pacers, Kentucky Colonels, Memphis Sounds.
Oh, yeah.
And he did some football also, and he did tennis and with the Astros, but, basketball was his main thing. And so that's sort of my love of basketball goes back as far as I can remember.
Little known fact, because I was a kid growing up in Memphis, in the Memphis Tans, but I don't know if people make much out of this. We used to go to the games all the time, but Adolph Rupp was the president of that team very briefly. I saw him in a couple of games, and I worked at the place where they practiced, and that's how I met him for the first time. But anyway, that's not why you're on. We'll get your dad on some other time to talk about the funny-looking basketball in the ABA. But of all the things I'm impressed with, I've known Dale all my life, but how did you get Tim McGraw to narrate this?
I know. How cool is that? When we made the film, I just made a wish list of who I wanted to voice it, and he was at the top. And interestingly enough, Shaq loves him, and I really didn't know that. And so I kind of mentioned, here's who I'm looking at, and it was like a big thumbs up from Shaq and his camp. And, I wanted Tim for a variety of reasons. I guess from an authenticity standpoint, being a Louisiana native, I looked at Louisiana, people who were from Louisiana, and I wanted someone who knew LSU basketball, who knew what it was about, who would appreciate it. And so I just felt, Tim obviously fits the bill in any number of areas, but, he never voiced a sports documentary. So I gotta say, talk about a thrill to go down to Nashville and sit and direct him for the voiceover was unbelievable. I'm like, I'm really sitting here telling Tim McGraw how to read this line. This is crazy. What's happening? But being on the other side and having done a lot of voiceover, it is very easy to communicate to someone else sort of what you want. And I thought, wow, I feel pretty blessed, that I've had the experience on the other side. I know how to tell him what I want and what I need and what I'm hearing and what he's doing. And he was a very hard worker, and he didn't have to sit there all day because he was so good, but he would have. He really wanted to get it right. And I love the fact that his voice, he complements the story so much, but he gets out of the way. I didn't want a voice that was, Shaq's got such a big personality, and Dale has such a big personality. He had to have, somebody really cool like Tim, like very calm and kind of chill, but that got the vibe, and that also said Baton Rouge correctly, which he says it with a hard G, like it's Baton Rouge, like people there would say Baton Rouge, and my favorite line is when he says down on the bayou. I love the way he says bayou. So yeah, it was really a thrill to have him aboard. I think he does a beautiful job.
The film tonight, of course, on the SEC Network later in the week on ESPN. I know it's such a cliche to ask someone like you, how do you find time? But, in addition to being one of the premier anchors, you've got kids, you've got other projects, you've got a globe-trotting husband. So how did you find the time?
I don't know. It's crazy. I take for actual shoot days when I have to be at the shoot and, do the directing, the nuts and bolts of it, I take vacation. And so that's how I did Shaq and Dale, and I spread the shooting out. This film was 2 years in the works. So I did the scenes in Baton Rouge the day after the All-Star game last year, NBA All-Star game in New Orleans. And then I went to Shaq and Dale's homes this summer. And I have a great crew of people that I work with, and we do a lot on over the internet, believe it or not. We send clips back and forth. I mean, I have to sit in and do things like, the color correcting and the sound mix and those sorts of things. But believe it or not, my editor was in Vermont, my producer was in Chicago, my writer was in New York, but, we were together physically at times, but we did a lot separately. So I do a lot at night. Just basically any waking moment I can, a lot on airplanes, a lot in the car on the way to work, I literally scheduled in when I'm not at ESPN before the kids get home. I do as much as I can, and so the only thing that really suffers is I don't get enough sleep, probably, as I should. But what parent does?
and by the way, kids, we're going to Baton Rouge for the summer vacation.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny, but of course, I'll work it around like college trips. I just did a shoot at Stanford, and my daughter and I were looking at colleges out there. We were looking at Loyola, New Orleans. I jumped over from there to Baton Rouge to do, one of my shoots. It was hilarious. So yes, exactly, Paul. You've got it down. You've got it right.
And Hannah, I say this with the greatest amount of affection for Dale Brown, someone that told the story. I met him when I was in college. He helped get me my first job, and I've admired him ever since. Having said all that, how did you chisel him down to a film? Because Dale you could do a Ken Burns miniseries on just his life in the Dakotas.
Yeah, and hysterical to keep him on subject too, as Dale he would laugh right now listening to this. But a part of the challenge of directing was keeping Dale on point because he has so many stories. He just wants to go off. And the hilarious thing is you'll see that the film, a large portion of the film is a conversation between the two of them. So I really had to be, stay on our subject matter. And Dale would start asking Shaq questions about this and that. Remember this person and that person. It was absolutely hilarious. We had a great time, but you're right. With Dale Brown, you could do a mini series just on him, and his upbringing is really critical, and was a critical point of the film for me. And you should see. These old pictures of him growing up are just priceless. And he does talk about being abandoned by his birth father and growing up on welfare, and that's part of what gave him. Not only empathy, but sort of the lifelong desire to stick up for the underdog, to stick up for the disenfranchised. And a lot of that translated to him being a coach and taking on whoever it was that was hurting or disrespecting his players in any way, be it the NCAA, be it the referees he tried to go to bat for Shaq, be it David Duke when he ran for governor, whoever it was, there was this pattern of Dale taking up for Shaq time and time again.
Finally, as an anchor, you have a team around you. There are people in your ear. You know how you're doing. But as a filmmaker and a director, you really don't until the finished product. And then I'm curious, how much did you hold your breath waiting for your peer group, your friends, and ultimately critics to chime in and give it a thumbs up or thumbs down?
Yeah, it's a whole different thing, right? When somebody's critiquing your work as a filmmaker, that's not what I've been doing. I've only been doing it for, I had my production company I started 8 years ago. It was a dream of mine, but I certainly acknowledge that. I'm young in this business. But I have to be honest, for me, it has to be really good for the people that I did the film on. They are the people who have to, in my mind, understand that their truth was being told. It's a blessing to be a journalist because I think I don't tend to trick anything up. I don't sugarcoat anything, and I don't stage anything, and I don't twist people's words, and I don't over-dramatize things. And I think that's really important in filmmaking because, in the end, the thing that would make me nervous is if the subject matter that I was talking about, if somehow that didn't ring true, right, to the person that it was about or the story that it was about or the fans. So I probably go to the 11th degree, and not only in terms of research, but also in terms of getting to the heart of exactly what's important in the face of the story. And sometimes it's not the obvious. And so, to me, whether it be Cheryl Swoops and the Houston Comets fans, or Payne Stewart's widow, or Shaq and Dale and all those great Louisiana fans, that really cared and loved and lived this, when they like it, to me, that's what's important, and that tells me that I did my job, And listen, that doesn't mean only covering the good stuff. That means covering all the difficult stuff and still being respected for your work. And to me, that's the ultimate prize. So Shaq has not seen it yet. He's going to watch it tonight live. And he trusted me to tell his story. He did not ask for a cut, and he would have gotten one. I never made changes based on if it's Chrissy or Martina or Shaq and Dale. But I do know that Dale really liked it. And I do know that there were, things about not winning a championship in there, or things about the David Duke incident, things that aren't pleasant or all, hearts and flowers and butterflies. And I know he loved it because it was about a real relationship. And I think Shaq will too.
Shaq and Dale tonight, 9 Eastern, on the SEC Network, later this week on ESPN. Hannah, thank you so very, very much. This has been just a delightful experience being on with you.
Can I come back?
As long as you are always invited here. We would love for you to be back.
Okay, I'm going to find some good reason.
Any reason is a good reason for me.
All right.
Thank you, Hannah.
Paul, for having me on. Okay.
Great stuff.
Bye, my friend.
This
Bye-bye.
is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
As we were chatting with Hannah Storm, it came out of Columbus, Ohio, that Urban Meyer is now going to be one of the highest paid coaches in the country, making a mere $6.5 million. Beating Nick Saban can be very, very good for your career. Rich is up next in Atlanta. Hey, Rich.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
Hey, a great interview with Hannah Storm. What a cool lady, huh?
Oh, no. She, I try not to just fawn over the air, but working with her, I do during the season, I do the Sunday morning Sports Center with her. I mean, it is just one of the great experiences. I mean, everyone at this network is good on a different level. Quick story, Rich. I was on with her as she heard the news in January that Stuart Scott had passed away, and she still had to get my interview out of the way about football, and she did it professionally, but you could tell, and the moment I went off, she delivered that story, and I think was on the air for the next 3 hours live. It was one of the more amazing things I have seen on television in a very long time.
Great professional. How cool is it that her father was the commissioner of the ABA?
No, that's his name was Mike Storin. You may, I mean, he was. I vaguely remember when he was president of the Hawks, but I do remember him being the commissioner. And you have to be up there in age to remember the ABA. But as a youngster and a teenager, I went to the games all the time, and I can't even remember half the players. But I mean, there were some really good players in that league. I think, including Julius Erving.
Yeah, which, here's your question: who did he start with? When he came out of UMass as a sophomore, where did he start?
I honestly don't know. I'll save your time.
You. Yeah, I stumped you. That's impossible. And I didn't even need 700 beers to stump you.
No.
The Virginia Squires.
Okay. Now, okay. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't have. I mean, if you had offered me $1 million, I could not have come up with it. Although I do. I remembered that he played in that league because he came out early, but I don't remember a lot about it. But I do remember that very well.
Real quick, Paul, if you want a great history of the ABA, there's a book I read years ago. It's called Loose Balls. I mean, I think the guy's name was Terry Pluto that wrote it.
Yeah, no, he was. I think he's from Cleveland. I think he did a book on LeBron or something. I remember the book.
It's great.
I may pick it up next to mine on the discount racks.
Hey, real quick, Augusta National, congratulations to Speed. Do you think the old gal needs to get dentures? Maybe she's losing her teeth. She doesn't need a facelift, but the course, Paul. I mean, Rich,
I will tell you. I mean, I remember I was there when Tiger went 18 under, and happened to be with a member of Augusta afterwards at dinner, and they were all in shock. And what happened. You know what happened, but I'm still not sure what the final analysis is. I thought Tiger made a good point the other day. You know, why don't they use the machines? I mean, there are heaters and coolers and moisture removers under every green at Augusta. So it's no excuse to say, well, the greens were soft, because I think they can handle that.
It's called sub-air systems, absolutely.
Sub-air, okay.
You look at the majors, Paul, every year. The best one, in my opinion, at least, is the U.S. Open because of the rough. They take the driver out of these guys' hands. You look at what happened this weekend again. Dustin Johnson had 3 eagles in one round. I mean, the par fives are now almost par 4.5.
No, it was ridiculous, Rich. I agree, and I've I mean, it wasn't that long ago that you barely had an under par round there. The conditions can have an effect, but there's still no excuse for that course to be eaten alive like it was.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Yeah, we had a caller talking about Jordan Spieth. Could he catch Tiger? And the easy answer is, well, he's really great and all that, but the reality is that it's hard to win majors. That's a cliche, but you start thinking about the list, guys. I know you both follow golf, but if you head back to post World War II, you have Hogan with 9, Gary Player with 9, Tom Watson with 8, Palmer with 7, Snead with 7. And then after that, it's a pretty short list. Trevino and Faldo, 2 of the greatest players of their era, with 6 majors. Mickelson with 5. And then it's Rory. Ballesteros had 4 or 5, and then Rory has 4. Rory is the only one who has a legitimate shot, I think. To catch. I mean, Jordan, could he get to 4? Sure, but it's really tough sledding after that.
It is, and the thing is, you look at the PGA Tour, guys win majors, then they disappear. You know, Stuart Sink won the British Open. He was a little older in his career, but then disappeared. Ben Curtis won major. They just fall off. It's tough to win, but you look at what Jordan Spieth did, it's pretty incredible. I mean, first champion at Augusta to go wire to wire since '76. Second youngest ever to do it. Almost broke the record for lowest round ever.
It's crazy. And you think about why sometimes golfers go away after they win a major championship. Think about it. And you work your whole entire life for that major championship. You get it, and what do? You make a big paycheck. You feel like you accomplished something. You put the clubs away for a little while.
Well, the thing is, if you win a major, and a lot of these guys do when they're in their 20s or 30s, then you're guaranteed a spot on tour for 5 years.
Right.
So you don't have to have that grind anymore. So it takes the special players, the ones that can win 4, 5, 6, whatever it is. Those are the special ones. I think golf's in good shape for the next couple of years because of Rory and Jordan, but you don't know if Dustin will go through and win one or any of these other guys.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Well, and every once in a while we get major celebrities in our studio, and today certainly that has occurred. Champ Bailey with us, the great from the University of Georgia. He only made the Pro Bowl 12 times, first-round pick, and Champ, it is very good to see you. And did you take a wrong turn?
No, Paul. I headed straight for your studio, and here I am.
Well, it's great to talk to you. I mean, somebody, as you know, we're in the middle of spring practice, but I'm most interested in your career. Certainly the majority of it with the Broncos. You started your career pro football with Washington, but let's start in Athens, where you're pretty well known. As I just heard from your ex-coach Jim Donnan. I think he uses this line all the time, but he said you're the best player he ever coached.
Yeah, I always felt like he overhyped me, but Jim Donnan was my first coach in college, my only coach. I was there his first year. I was one of his big recruits, so that's typical of a coach. Going into college, recruiting the big players, he's gonna hype his guys. So I appreciate the compliment.
I've been friends with Coach Donnan a long time, and he's usually got a pretty good eye for football.
Okay, well I'll take it. I'll take it.
How did he talk you into going to Georgia? Considering he had just gotten there.
I was a Georgia boy. I mean, I was always a Bulldog growing up. My older brother was already at Georgia on full scholarship, so it was a no-brainer for me to go there.
Certainly, I know you guys won bowl games every year while Coach Don was there, but that was an interesting time in the SEC. Your first-round pick with the Redskins, how different was that world from Athens, Georgia, to the nation's capital?
Oh, my God, unbelievably different. I think as a pro athlete coming out of college, one thing you have to get used to is this is your profession. This is what you went to college for, to have a great profession. So you get used to that fact and understand you got to start acting professional, doing professional things. And that's the biggest adjustment, because you don't have classes all day. A lot of free time, a lot more money. You just have to be more professional on and off the field.
When you got that first big check, did you go out and do something special with it?
Well, not really. I put it in the bank, thought about it for a minute. Bought a car, bought my mom a house, and then started buying things for myself.
You did well. It wasn't long after you arrived that a pretty familiar guy on this show arrived in town from the University of Florida, Steve Spurrier. You obviously knew all about Spurrier. You played against him. He was a bitter rival. Yeah. What was it like for the old ball coach to suddenly be your coach?
I grew up hating the guy. But I think once he became my head coach, I learned to respect him because he was such a player coach. You could talk to him about anything. He cared about you. He cared about winning. It just didn't work out in Washington. And it's unfortunate because he's such a great guy, such a great leader. And, I wish him well at South Carolina. And I know his retirement's coming up, within the next 10 years. But
10 years?
I'm giving him 10 because I thought he was retired 5 years ago.
Oh, yeah, I did
but
too.
He's still going.
We had him on the other day, and he didn't like the suggestions that that he had a bad year last year at 7-6. You beat Florida once while you were at Georgia.
Yes.
Did you guys ever discuss the good old days, or you left the cocktail party to others?
A little. Well, fortunately for me, he brought a lot of his former players with him.
He sure did.
That were on those teams.
That was one of his undoings in Washington.
I did more of my bragging to those guys, Jacquez Green and Riedel Anthony. We would always go back and forth about those games.
He would have been better if he left some of the quarterbacks from Florida at home.
Yeah, he brought in one too many, and it kind of backfired because they were not NFL quarterbacks. They knew his system, but they weren't ready for the NFL.
I realize it's water under the bridge, but people always go back and wonder what happened to Saban at Miami and Spurrier at Washington. But as one of his players, it seemed to me that he just expected things to be the same, but he found out the NFL was a different world.
Yes, and I think as a college coach, you understand that you can outcoach somebody. Now, in the NFL, I don't believe there's a such thing as outcoaching. The players have to outplay the other team. So it's more about personnel. I don't think he ever got a grasp of that, but because he was so caught up in his schemes, they worked so well in college for so many years, why wouldn't they at the next level? You got to have the right players, period. I don't care what your scheme is. If you don't have the right players, you will not win in the NFL.
So then you head to Denver where you run into a couple of other former SEC quarterbacks.
Yes. The first Tebow, great time with him. Great pro. I mean, the guy is so passionate about the game. Just didn't work out. He always had the world against him because of how he played the game. But when you sit in the locker room with him and you go on the practice field with him, you understand that passion. You feel it. It rubs off. Great leader. And I love that about him.
Let me ask you about it, because there's so much conversation today. Certainly, Kelly has brought him in to Philadelphia. You played with him. You guys had that epic win in the wild card game, which has been his signature throw of his NFL career. Going against him in practice, knowing him, do you think he'll get another shot, or should he get another shot in the NFL?
I'm not sure. I haven't watched him lately. I don't know how much he's improved. If he's improved, yes, he should get another shot. He should be in somebody's camp to prove himself, whether he could play or not. And I think he has a really unconventional style with the way he plays. And Chip Kelly has an unconventional offense. So I felt like, if there's any place that he could fit, it would be there.
So you go from a Heisman Trophy winner to someone who should have won the Heisman, but was one of the greatest players in the history
of the game.
The right
person won that year.
Okay. I forgot.
I love Peyton, but the right person won that
year. Okay. Well, I understand your position. Peyton Manning was had to be a treat to play with and be around.
Definitely. He's one guy that I learned so much from in such a short period of time. His approach, his leadership skills, the way he practices, he's so detailed, always wants to be perfect. If we made plays against him, he would come talk to us to find out how we defeated him on that play or that series. And the next day, he'd make you look bad because of something you might have told him the day before. That's just how good he is.
It's interesting, though, with all of his greatness and with all the wins, some may look at his career at Denver because he didn't get the big Super Bowl win, or at least not yet. Where are you on his continuing to play and searching for yet another ring?
I applaud it. Play as long as you can. This thing, it's a rare opportunity to get the chance to play, but the chance to prolong your career the way you want to, go out how you want to go out. I mean, nobody writes your book but you. So I applaud that. I love his fight. I'm glad he's coming back. I love watching him play, and I will be attending some of those games.
What makes him arguably the greatest of all time? Is it the perfectionism in him? Is it? Obviously we know he has skill, but
I played with guys that were perfectionists, like a Peyton. But one thing about him, he has a killer instinct. And I think that's what drives him, sets him apart from the rest, because he's trying to dominate you every play. And I appreciated that. I love having that on my team. And, man, the guy was amazing with the way he approached every game, because you never never had to worry about him playing up to his level, because you knew he was going to bring it every week.
Let me end talking about you. You were a rarity in football. You were a triple threat. You pretty much did it all. Maybe one reason why you weren't advocating Peyton for the Heisman. There was another triple threat that year. Talk about how you ended up doing just about everything.
It was a promise that Coach Jim Donnan, actually made to me as a high school senior. He told me, I'll give you the opportunity to play offense, defense, special teams, whatever you want. I was a great high school running back and quarterback, so I knew that passion to touch the ball would never leave me, at least not while I was still young. And he gave me that opportunity. He told me he stood by his word. And, a lot of times guys will tell you that as a recruit and not do it, but he delivered, and he gave me the opportunity to play, and I couldn't let him down by not going out there and producing.
So obviously you're one of the great corners of all time, but had you played on the other side with the same regularity?
As in college, or?
Well, as you matriculated.
Well, in college I played probably, I would say, 60 snaps on defense, and then it'd be like 30, 40 on offense, on average, at least, in college. In the pros, I knew that wasn't possible, to play that many. But I did have the opportunity my second year to play a little.
That's pretty amazing, as much as you played in college, because it's almost unheard of.
Yeah, you don't see it a lot today. I think it's more because of the style of offenses teams are running. It's more up-tempo. You have so many more athletes than when I was in college. So you don't have to worry about plugging guys here and there as much. I mean, you see teams trying to go back to it a little bit, but it wears guys out. I remember having to get IVs at halftime. Now, if they're running up-tempo nowadays, I mean, there's no telling how tired and drained these guys are to play what they do best, and that might be defense.
The great Champ Bailey, the former Georgia All-American, just 12-time All-Pro with both Washington and Denver. Thank you. It's been a great pleasure and a thrill to talk to you.
I appreciate it, Paul.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Jeff is up next in Tennessee. Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Paul. I was wanting to know your thoughts on a somewhat young and inexperienced Vols team. Do you think we have a shot at the East this year?
I do. And can I back that up with anything other than emotion? No, but I think you have to buy in on Josh Dobbs. You have to buy in on a lot of young players who are maturing, and I still think the schedule is reasonably good. I mean, everyone, you say everyone plays the same schedule. Everyone doesn't play the same schedule. To me, if you look at Tennessee's schedule and you look at the fact that Georgia is at home, I think that is really an important, significant date. I realize Tennessee has to go to Florida, but I think Tennessee will beat Florida. So if Oklahoma's at home, is that winnable? Sure, it's winnable. At Florida, that is, to me, the litmus test, and then you have Arkansas and Georgia at home. You could turn both those games in your favor, assuming you beat Florida, and you are off and running. Bama will be difficult in Tuscaloosa. Kentucky's winnable. South Carolina at home's winnable. At Missouri, I don't think right now that is winnable. And then Vanderbilt at home. So if you're talking about, there's no such thing as a sure loss, but I would say Alabama is the most likely loss. To me, Missouri would probably be next, and Tennessee, it would need some breaks, but it could win the rest of the SEC games, and that perhaps would be good enough to get the Vols to Atlanta.
Well, I sure appreciate your time there, Mr. King, and more luck and good luck to you on your show, and this first-time caller, and thanks a lot.
Well, thank you, Jeff. It's really good to hear from you. Let's check out Daryl. Who is next? And I'm sure Daryl does not agree with anything I just got through saying. What's up, Daryl?
No, actually, I do. Actually, that's a lot of hoping, though. You know what I'm saying? I mean, first of all, I don't be too worried about South Carolina because, 6-6 is pretty much considered a good season up there now, I guess. So I wouldn't be too worried about them if I was
What'd you think of Chan Bailey?
I love the Bailey boys. Man, never heard the Bailey boys getting in any trouble, did you?
Nope.
3 of them. You know what I'm saying? Boss was hell, too. I mean, all 3 of them, all in the NFL. Great moms and dads. I mean, just great kids. And Chant was a stud at Georgia. There's no doubt about that. But I admire them, not so all of them, not so much for their success, but you never heard them get in any type of trouble in college or in the NFL. Role models. They would be a good template for how a player needs to carry themselves in college and if they go on into the NFL. Hey, I won't be too worried about Georgia either. I'm gonna tell you, dude. After our spring game, we got some issues. All right, I tweeted Coach Rick told him center to quarterback from the shotgun. We got problems. I mean, it's got to get fixed. The quarterback cannot be worried about where's the ball going to go, left, right, over.
You said you tweeted Coach Rick.
Oh, yeah, I called him if I got to. We got to get it fixed, Paul. Kicking game, problem. Okay. I don't know what's up with the kicking game. They saying it's a holder. We got a problem. I mean, we only made 50% of our field goals so far this year. Got to get fixed. Wide receivers dropping ball, problem. Got to get fixed. If those 3 things don't get fixed, it's going to be a long year for Georgia. Defense is even much better. Has vastly improved since Pruitt's come along. That's a good thing. But we got some things that Georgia's got some wrinkles they're going to iron out. We do have that one boy, Tolman, a running back. I'm telling you what, he has been nailing it, man. I mean, over 100 yards about every game so far. In the spring, he had over 100. In scrimmages, he's had over 100. So Georgia's loaded at running back. But we got some issues on the offensive line. We got some issues. Still ain't got a quarterback. I mean, both of them boys are pretty good. But we got some things that are going to have to get fixed in the summer. Or it's going to be a long season for the University of Georgia when it comes to football. Hey, as far as the golf, what was your take on that?
I wasn't overly surprised. I thought Spieth showed last year and leading up to the Masters that he was one of the top players in the world. So I can't tell you I was too surprised.
I ain't gonna say I was surprised. I was surprised that the course played as easy as it did.
Yeah,
that's not the way it's supposed to be. I mean, you're not supposed to go that far under par in 4 rounds at Augusta. It's not supposed to be like that. I'm surprised at how people go out there. I do not understand how people compare these kids like this guy to Tiger Woods and Jack Nicklaus. I mean, that is like that's his first major. I mean, he's got 13 more before he can tie Tiger and 17 more before he can tie Jack. But I mean, not saying that he don't have the potential, but let's let him get a few majors under his belt before we start comparing him to Tiger Woods and Jack Nicklaus. And hey, I heard Lance coming in bumping his gums about Georgia, about this upcoming football season. I think he has enough to worry about down in Florida, okay? I mean, they got a new head coach. We don't know about their offense. I'll tell you what, their defense ain't going to be no better. Muschamp was a master at that. So I think their defense is not going to be as good as it was last year. And one more thing I want to say to him, I mean, he came in here, Paul. It was a great call last week. But he for some reason, he wants to come in here just boasting about how he's a single parent and all that. There's a lot of men out there in this world, okay, that are single parents. He's not the friggin' only one. at all. And instead of a pat on the back, that's what he was looking for. I think we need to give him exactly probably what he deserves, which is a foot in the foot. That would probably help him, or a sock in the mouth, one or the other. But anyway, I'm out of here. See you, Paul.
Thank you, Daryl, delivering some corporal punishment there. Linda's up next. How are you, Linda?
Good. How are you, Paul?
Oh, great. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for taking my call. I'm calling on behalf of my dear friend Debbie from Kimberly. Talked to her a couple hours ago. She fell and broke both sides of her ankle and her leg Saturday early in the morning. Yes. So I'm calling on her behalf that you and your staff and everyone at the SEC Network, all your listeners, all your callers, to keep her.
So, Linda, what is her condition right now?
Well, it happened in the wee hours of the morning. It was quite a freak accident, if I may indulge on that. Her dog had been having trouble with his disc. I think the disc had ruptured, and he couldn't move about. She had to pick him up and stuff, and she was going up her steps. This was late Friday night in the wee hours of Saturday morning. And she was carrying him up the steps, and he started moving around quite a bit, So she lost her balance and fell backwards down the step and broke both sides of her ankle and her fibula in her leg.
My goodness. Well, I tell you what, Linda, thank you for sharing that, and please, we'll certainly all keep her in our thoughts, and let us know what's going on.
Thank you for listening to the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast. Tune into the Paul Finebaum Show every day from 3 to 7 Eastern on the SEC Network or on the ESPN radio app.
Geico presents Strange Saving Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
ESPN Radio.
With the action on the court, the diamond, or the gridiron,
comes alive.
The NBA.
The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
Major League Baseball.
San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
The new college football playoff.
College football playoff national champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
You're home for the best in sports play-by-play.
ESPN Radio.
Two of baseball's best go head-to-head in interleague action when the Tigers head to St. Louis to face the Cardinals.
That one is gone.
The pregame at 7 Eastern, first pitch at 8, Sunday on ESPN and ESPN Radio.